From the heart of Maine, this is the DuView Podcast.
All right, and welcome to this week's episode of the DuView Podcast. I am your host, Du, a.k.a. Ryan Dumont, and this week is quite a special episode, guys. I am joined by the other voice of the DuView Podcast, my good buddy, Mr. James Talalas. Jim does the intro for the podcast, so every time you hear from the heart of Maine, Jim, if you could do that for us real quick.
From the heart of Maine, this is the DuView Podcast.
Yeah, see, like I said, the guy can do it on command. And so when I was starting out with the podcast, to give a little quick background, then we'll have Jimbo jump in here. I was, really at a loss for voiceover work, and voiceover work can get pricey. So I, thought I'd cut out the middleman in a sense, and I contacted Jim and I said, "Hey, buddy, I know you got that good voice for announcing and for really prominent booming voice, good narration voice." I said, "How would you like to be the first voice that people hear, when you turn on the podcast?" And he happily accepted. And basically the rest is history, buddy. So thank you for that.
Of course. I just wish my speaking voice was like that on a daily basis. I think I'd get a lot more done.
Yeah, no, I probably.
There'd be a lot less questions asked me after I say
Whoa,
something.
He's very confident. He knows this guy knows what he's talking about. But, thanks for coming on, buddy, and thanks for making the trip up. I know that it can be a haul for some people. Jim is an original Massachusetts native. Specifically, he is one of the folks that can say, "I'm from Boston."
That's
people
right.
people from Massachusetts will be like, "Oh, I live in Peabody, but I'm from Boston." It's like, no, you're not.
Yep.
I mean, like I said, Dad lived and worked in Hyde Park.
Yep.
Or, Lidley's lived and worked in Boston, so I can, I have enough of a geography sense to know what is Boston and what isn't Boston. And Dorchester is very much the heart and soul of the city of Boston in a lot of ways. So, buddy, how is it like growing up in the city? I mean, like I said, just to get it out of the way, we lived very different existences early on.
Yep.
You're a city boy born and raised, and I'm definitely more from the country. So that being said, how is it like growing up in the city of Boston, buddy?
I think the biggest difference is definitely the fact that I grew up on a tenth of an acre of land as opposed to, the rolling fields of Augusta, Maine. It's different. I mean, for me, I didn't even get my license till I was 20 because I just took the red line everywhere because I was only a 2-minute walk.
And
from,
do you remember my reaction when we were in college? We went to college. That's how I met Jim, and we'll get into that story in a minute. We went to St. Anselm College together. But he goes, "Yeah, I'm going for my license this summer." And I'm like, "You don't already have that?" He's like, "Yeah, we don't need to drive. It's just like no point. And,
Yeah.
like having a car is more of a hindrance than a help." And I'm like, "But what if you need to go like outside?" "Oh, yeah, don't talk to me about that."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
no, that's crazy though. And again, it just shows the difference. Like up here, if you don't have your license when you're 16, you're bumming a ride off mom or dad all the time. Or you have that one friend that has their license and you're just using them all the time.
Right.
You have to.
Yeah.
Like things are Maine close is like 15 minutes apart. Like
Well, it's funny because, when I met Christina and I told her about it, Christina's my fiance.
Yep.
She was like, the second she turned 16,
Yep.
for her and all of her sisters, it's like you get a car, and
Yep.
you get a payment, you get a job, and you
Yep.
just start doing that.
She's
because,
from northern New Hampshire. That's how it's the same thing as up here.
right,
dude.
exactly. It's like otherwise you're landlocked.
Yep,
It's
yep.
like you've got no other options.
I'm stranded. Yeah, exactly. You are very much landlocked, and so being the interesting thing about Boston, though, you're on the harbor.
Yep.
Speaking of not being as landlocked and having a lot of avenues,
Right.
some literal cow paths.
Yep.
That's the thing that's always fascinated me about the city of Boston. It's like literally the catalyst point for the United States. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? We can
Yep.
thank the early Bostonians for having the sack to stand up to the king and do
Yep.
what they needed to do.
Yep.
But what do you? I know that you're no longer in Boston. What do you miss about living down there? Is it the convenience? Is it, or do you not miss perhaps living in town Boston anymore?
I think it's a place that I'm glad that I'm always like an hour away from,
Right.
because I love visiting.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
and
you have friends and family and
Right. I
everything
mean,
like that.
it's a gorgeous place.
Right.
I think that for me, it's once I got a taste of like the St. Anselm 440-acre campus.
Yeah.
There's actually like trees and stuff.
Squirrels,
like,
trees, and grass. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it was just a very big difference. And now it's, I go back to Boston. I've got all the places that I love to go to. And a day trip to Boston, you can do a lot of the things I would normally do when I lived in the city because it is still so accessible. I mean, from Portsmouth, you can take a bus down, take you like an hour,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
you could be in Boston for the day pretty easily. But I do miss my friends that are in Boston. So
of
easy to
course.
see.
Yeah.
That is a different thing about even just getting older in general is how much further away your friends seem to be.
Yeah. No, that's very true. Like I said, we talked about that last night when
Yeah.
it's tough. Like especially when you really feel connected with a group of people that, and again, like I've known you guys, just under a decade. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And like I appreciate the hell out of you guys, from college. And it's just, like you said, it is harder the older you get. Like even my friends around here, around Augusta, the Augusta area from high school, I don't even see them as often as I'd like to, just because podcast and involved with Kara up at the
Right.
If we weren't doing an episode right now, I'd be up mowing and weed whacking and doing
Yeah.
all that. And soccer just started back up again. I'm coaching again.
Right.
So it's busy, but I mean, I do it to myself in part too, I guess. But that being said, I understand that, and it's a hard dynamic once we got out of college. Like you and I also lived together for a year after college, and so like we've been always close enough, in that
Right.
aspect. But like you said, it is tough. Like, and situations have changed between COVID and whatever. Like you guys relocated up towards the Claremont, area, and
Yep.
that went from you being an hour and 40 whatever minutes away to almost 3.
Yep. Yep.
But then, like I said, we adapt and overcome, and like that's the unique thing about friendship, I guess.
Well, I mean, the beautiful thing about strong friendships is, even though it could be literally years between seeing each other, I mean,
We
feels
pick
like
right back
never
up.
feels like anything's
Yep.
changed. I mean, even some of my friends from Boston I saw, I think it was probably after it had to have been 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
I felt like I just saw him yesterday, even
Right.
though, it's probably a lot of character growth in the last 4 years that but it's just the same people.
That's good. Well, and that's good that like character growth is a difficult one in friend groups, especially when a handful of folks go off and come back and they
Yep.
change, and it's not always accepted.
No.
And it's difficult to walk a fine line with your friends. They're like, what happened to you? It's like,
Right.
I went out and I saw some shit, guys. I went out and saw the world for what it was. I didn't just stay in my cocoon, and that's fine. If that's your safety zone and you want to stay in your cocoon, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that there is other perspective out there.
Yeah.
That's the I guess the catch-22 as far in my opinion. It's like there's a lot to see out there, buddy. I
Yeah.
mean, you've seen some of it. I mean, we've traveled together, and
Right.
it's amazing. But at the same time, it's like character growth is a tough road to walk. Especially if you feel like you've made some great strides personally, but then maybe some folks aren't always supportive of that.
I think it's a good way to vet out when you've got good people is that they want to grow with you as opposed
Yep.
to cut you out the second that you're no
Yep.
longer filling the whatever drinking
need, right?
certain
yeah.
amount of beer and then being the certain how entertaining that you're used to them being
Right.
instead of just being more functional. So
Mhm.
yeah.
That's very true, buddy. And it's just like I said, you've always have been a good grounding force for me in the sense that you remind me that sometimes it's better to keep your circle small. You know what I'm saying? And you've been one of the major forces that's reminded me of that. And it's not like you're trying to say, oh, be antisocial, but it's just like take stock of what you have.
Yeah.
And be, and again, it's difficult, and you find different ways to make things work in friendships, especially like you said, if they're those serious, really deep meaning connections, And so, like, I guess that must have been an interesting feat for you, buddy. I mean, coming up to New Hampshire for college, which would then pull you out of a world that you were very much into. Same with me being up here. I mean, it was a bit much bigger area, more people around, than what we have here in Augusta. Manchester, while it's not a huge city, it was a very different and welcome change for us. And so when you went back, what were the biggest, changes that you noticed? Because like I said, you had more land to walk around, and so did you start to feel, was there any feeling of suffocation being back in the city, or were you just so used to it? Because then you guys would quickly move to Connecticut, where you would have a little,
Right.
more space.
Yep.
So how did that dynamic work out for you, Jimbo?
I think for me it's Boston always feels like home. It was
Yep.
when I went to New York that I was like, this
Okay.
is too
This is
much
bogus.
city.
Yeah.
Bring me back to New Hampshire. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like going there for like a day trip, but
Yeah, me too.
that's just
Me too.
Boston is clean. In New York, if it's trash day, smells like trash throughout the entire city. But I think change for people is slow. I think going to New Hampshire, coming back, it always felt like put on old shoes.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think it's when you when you look back a year, it doesn't seem like anything's changed. When you look back 5 or 10,
Yeah.
it feels like it's a whole lifetime. So
Yeah,
it's
most
interesting.
definitely. Even
Yeah.
freshman year of college seems like a whole lifetime ago, and that wasn't really that long ago. I mean, these last 3 years have felt like an eternity in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know, it must be different for you working from home and whatever. I mean, like things have just transpired so differently from when we got out of college. You know, it's crazy. It really is crazy.
Well, it's interesting because the way that your mind perceives time is
Yeah.
it clumps together times where you're doing the same thing.
Yep.
Just to leave room for new memories. But one of the beautiful things about life is just making those big sweeping changes.
Yeah.
But we've had a lot less of them since we've graduated college.
Yeah, we have.
So now, I mean, finding those moments that really make life what worth living.
Yeah,
like,
and
that
special
actually like
and
really
the
make
shit that
life
keeps you sane. Yeah.
And then it's amazing because you think about, I don't want to make all these crazy changes in my life.
Right.
But then when you look back, years from now, at least I'm assuming, obviously.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But you get to go back and you think of all those major changes, and they've made your life worth living because there's so many things that have happened.
Right. Well,
even though it feels like it's horrible at the time.
and that's a great point, Jim. And that reminds me a lot of one of my first episodes with my mentor, Mr. Millett, John Millett, and talking about and this is a guy who's lived a very successful career in education and youth coaching youth sports. And, guy always talked about reinventing himself every 5 years or whatever. And so we actually talked about that with one of my previous guests, Jason Barnes. And he and I were talking about that in the sense that it is good to reinvent yourself every so often, similar to what Millett was saying. And we talked about those big sweeping changes in a lot of ways. And like I said, I'm going through one of those big sweeping changes right now. Like I said, I had a pretty successful early career in politics and thought I was really going to, knowing me back in college, I thought I was going to have a very successful political career, and now I'm going back to school to, continue my electrical training.
Right.
So and I hope to look back and say, I made the right decision, and I feel like I did. I feel like I am. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like we'll see in a couple of years. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's a great point that you bring up, and that some of the previous guests on the podcast have brought up is that like you might not do the same career, or it might not even be a career. It might be a volunteering thing that you used to do forever, and then you have to, go work for a new nonprofit or whatever it might be. Whatever you do in your life that is routine, right? That is that one thing you wake up and do every day. When you lose that routine or that normalcy, right, it changes things, and you have to either adapt and overcome, or you kind of trip over yourself. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, that's kind of the beauty of life. In certain ways, you look back and you're like, oh, I wish I never did that, or I regret dating that person,
right?
Or
but
so many
it's
things.
a learning experience too, right, buddy? Like,
yeah,
that's how I look at it.
That's the thing. It's like even if it is a 4 or 5 year, like going to college or something, like, oh, I could have just gone right into trades, or
right.
I could have I could have saved myself 2 years of heartbreak and just not dated that person. It's like the person that you come out as on the other side of the tunnel is worth whatever it was.
Worth the struggle
for everybody.
hardship.
Taking that, like, the learning experience might be more of a toll, and then the next one might come a little quicker
and easier. Yeah.
Right. But you're just every person is just a collection of their own mistakes and learning from them, and it makes you a stronger person. So
that's the quotable line from this episode, buddy. That's awesome. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right on, dude. Like I said, I can think of choices I've made in my life that have either set me up for success or set me up for failure, and you either reap the reward or the benefit, or you struggle, right? Again, that's kind of what I was saying a little earlier. It's just and to what degree you struggle, right? It comes back to you and who you surround yourself with too, and that's like why I was getting back to the real theme here, the real sticking point kind of this episode is the importance of friendship and having tight friendships, guys. It's not just having like this big circle of people, and that's what I think you've really hammered home to me over these years, Jimbo. It's better to have a nice tight-knit group of people you can trust versus having a bunch of hang-arounds and whatever. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm all about inclusion and, the more the merrier, but at the same time, like, maybe in a social setting, but in terms of like close people you trust and like interact with on a really close and emotional, personal basis, keep that circle small.
Yeah,
at least in my opinion.
Well, no, I definitely think you're right, obviously, because I've definitely said the same thing to you.
I'm quoting you back to you. You're welcome.
I think in college that might have come from like a slightly more antisocial circle for myself, but now,
Not
which is funny.
unjustified.
Well, right.
Right?
As I've gotten older though, it's like, and I've definitely become more extroverted as I've gotten older.
Yeah, you have. We're proud of you, buddy.
Oh, thank you. Well, the funny thing is, like, now it's not even the fact that I'm averse to meeting new people because I've found so many good ones. It's more like I don't have the time to allot to another
Right.
friendship, or when I think of the amount of time it took for us to know each other this well.
Oh, yeah.
Like that amount of time commitment. It's like, where do you
how-
find the time to
Right,
do that with somebody
right.
new?
Yeah, no, that's a good point, buddy. And like I said, that was so unique about meeting you. And like I think our story of friendship is kind of quintessential to the whole process. So we can get into that. So
Yeah.
as I said, Jim and I went to college together. Literally met day one.
Yep.
Day one of college orientation. We literally lived right across the hall from each other. When I first got there, I had a very different roommate than Lucas. I didn't
Yep.
start living with Lucas as I have, specified in other episodes. And so, spent a lot of time with Jim and in your room and whatever, just due to my own situation. But the fact of the matter being is, we had two Jameses that lived across the hall. We had James Talalas and James Roleri,
Yep.
which is the triplet of our other buddy Pony,
Yep.
or John Roleri. Which is funny as hell that whole dynamic ended up working out, and he ended up living with us later on. But
Yep.
getting back to the freshman year story, so 2015, we move into a very hot Dominic Hall. It was 1,000 degrees, fourth floor, dorm building, old brick building, and so. Yeah, I walk across open the door across the hall, and there's this kid from Boston, James Talalas, and we introduce ourselves, and we talk, and we hit it right off just about instantly. I started off by harassing your roommate, yelling at him out the window to
Yep.
figure out how to plug in his fan or something
Yep.
like that. I don't remember exactly how that situation arose, but I won you over pretty early on,
Yep.
buddy, and vice versa. And so I remember us hanging out, eating buffalo chicken calzones together in the early weeks, playing some Nazi zombies or
Yes.
playing some Grand Theft Auto together,
Yep.
in some free time after class, and just like started really, hitting it off with a friendship, and really kind of just took off from there. It was that across the hall buddy that really spiraled into long-lasting college and beyond friendship, which is awesome, buddy, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I thank you. And then, it's such a funny time, and it couldn't have come at a better time to meet you because when you're first thrown to college, I mean, it is so like scary for anybody.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
it was.
it's a different place. You don't know anybody. You don't have anything to fall back on.
Nope.
And I'll never forget talking to you and then having you kind of come into the room and look around James's stuff like you own the place, and I was like, this is awesome. And like just being able to go back to you, and because orientation for me, I didn't meet anybody there.
Yeah.
But it was I just come back and hang out with you, and
Yep.
from there, I mean, we met everybody else, and
Yeah.
it's funny talking about people we met first. Is Lucas.
Yeah.
Was, I think, the first interaction I had at college.
Yeah.
After that day one of orientation, because we had to wake up. I
Yeah.
remember this. Like it's like 6 a.m.
Super early.
Yeah, for day 2 of orientation. I wake up. I'm miserable. I'm tired. I go over.
We're just sweating all night.
Yeah.
The fans were just pushing hot air around the rooms. Like you don't fall asleep until almost 3 a.m. when it cools off.
Yeah. So I woke up. It's like 6 a.m. I shuffled my way to the showers. Look over, and there's this very happy blonde guy,
Lanky dude,
just
right.
and I'm actually as miserable as I probably could ever look, and he looks at me and goes, "Good morning, sunshine," and I was like, "Thanks." And and that was meeting Lucas. So.
Well, and that's the great, very early on interaction with him. Day 2,
Yep.
that evening, we were sitting in the hall talking, and he goes, "Where are you from?" And we both realized we were both from Maine,
Yep.
and then we'd actually, like as I said on previous episodes, competed against each other in track and field, and knew a lot of the same people from various things, and just kind of hit it off. And
Yep.
Luke's a great guy, and very lucky to have him as a friend as well. And, greatly appreciate all those people we met early on. But it was just cool how we really laid the foundation for our friendships. And then we met Pete down the hall.
Yeah.
And, of everybody else that, came into the fold with 99 Speed and
Yep.
the other friend groups as well. We met a lot of other great people, folks like Sarah and Rowan and all
Yeah.
these other, great folks that, we met along the way too that are great people. Haley, and shout out to Haley and Ed just for recently getting married.
Congratulations.
Love those guys. Yeah, it's just St. A's is such a unique place, and like I said, like I've thrown a lot of shade at St. A's recently, either between like not having like the right amount of housing or whatever, but like I am very thankful for that place. And like I said, I might not write a check for Days of Giving or whatever nonsense, but I will support St. A's and I will prop up St. A's when I can.
Yep.
But that being said, St. A's was really the catalyst for us, and so if you could remember back, why did you pick St. Anselm College in the first place, buddy?
It was easy for me.
Yeah.
It was when I was going to different college tours, I remember touring BC, which basically just an extension of the city. Toured
Right.
VU,
Yeah.
again, like no campus.
Yep.
And then I went to Dartmouth. That was beautiful. I went to St. Mike's. No shit at St. Mike's, but the place kind of looks like a penitentiary.
Prison. Yeah. I thought
like
the
all
same
just
thing.
the old
Yeah.
brick buildings. There's like no light. Yeah. And then I went to St. A's, and it was just like I think it was during the winter. It was like a rainy day, and just driving around the campus, and I was like, this place is perfect.
Yeah.
And then just hearing them talk about it, that it's still academically rigorous, and that they've got strong Catholic presence, which was awesome. And
Yep. Yeah, it's important to you guys.
just
yeah.
a lot of great things about it. But the main thing just being that campus, it just felt like home for some reason.
It still does. I miss being there.
Yeah.
If
do
I could
too.
live there, I would. Seriously. I mean, I loved being at St. A's, man.
Yeah. I mean, it was just there was so many unique things about that, like having the Abbey on campus and having monks walk around.
I mean, making relationships with those guys too. They're fantastic. I mean, we both worked for Father Ian, who was the director, or who is rather the director of the Chapel Arts Center. We both. I mean, you guys all got me, and they got me that job.
Yeah.
We were all gallery attendants, but we were known and we were loved.
Yeah.
Eventually you'd end up moving in. We'd all end up moving in together, the four of us. But we'll get to that in just a second. But yeah, it was it had a very big like home feeling from like just being in the dining hall, and they're like, hey, we have Christmas feast and we have like this, that, and a pie sale and whatever, and gingerbread competition. I'm like, yeah, I could see myself. It was the same thing. It clicked. Like I had gone, like I did a week of just straight college tours, April vacation, my junior year of high school. Started it in Vermont, went to St. Mike's, went to UVM.
Yep.
And I like St. Mike's out of the two. I like the smaller school. UVM felt like a jungle.
Yeah.
Like there were too many people. Like 10,000 people or whatever. That was too much.
Yeah.
Like I don't even remember how many people actually go to UVM, but beautiful campus. Burlington's a cool spot. I would have been fine, I'm sure.
Right.
But it wasn't me. It didn't feel right. And then came back to Massachusetts, and we went to Merrimack, which was cool, but I just didn't quite feel, North Andover, Mass was for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to Stonehill, which I really liked, but it was also the priciest of the lot. And I really dug Stonehill a lot. They had a pretty decent political science program, which was what I was looking at. But then I went to St. Anselm College, and I went to the Political Institute.
Oh, yeah.
And I, met some folks and talked with some people, and I was just like, I can't go to a school, like, consider this school and not go here, like, with just the reach and the presence and everything. Like, talking with Neil Levesque, who was the executive director at the Political Institute at the time, and whatever else, it's just like, this feels like home.
Right.
And that's the instant, same reaction you had. Was just this is where I want to go. And so luckily they also gave me the largest financial aid package. And things were just obviously meant to be at St. Anselm College, dude.
Right.
And so when you were meeting us early on, and I mean this is a big hindsight question obviously, but like when you met us early on, did you see, I mean we ended up living together junior and senior year, you, me, Lucas, and John or Pony. Did you see yourself living with us when you first?
I think at that, like when I first met you all, I was just kind of focused on trying to survive in this completely new environment. But when you find good people, and I was happy to know that I'd be near you guys, because I mean, in hindsight, I feel like I lived with all of our friends because we're just all so close.
Yeah. Oh, and you really do.
Yeah.
I mean, you really do. Like it's like our room was basically like Jerry's apartment junior year.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Seinfeld.
Oh, yeah.
Like Kramer comes in all the time. And Kramer in this situation being Chap, but love you, buddy. But it's just Tyler Glass across the hall, punch it in the coat. Beep, boop, boop. You just open the door just to like, hi.
Yep.
It's like, why, Tyler? Leave me alone.
Yeah.
No, but all those guys were great, and it's just really unique situation. Like going from living in the dorms to eventually having an apartment together, which was really cool. Senior year, having that. And we were regarded pretty highly, you know, with our apartment and whatever. The only downside, and not that they weren't great, the RAs were actually pretty great, were pretty good to us, but we did live above the RA apartment, so there was a, hey, can you guys turn it down? You guys, it's one of our roommates is sleeping. Can you just turn it down? It's 2 a.m. on a Saturday or on Friday night. Yep. Can you just turn it down? Sorry, Becky. Sorry,
Ryan, it's 6:30 in the morning.
Ryan, it's 6:30 in the morning. Turn off Alan Jackson. But we got to play Papa Top, guys.
This is the 5th time you've played that song in a row, trying to sync up the song to the can opening.
Which I did, by the way. I'm pretty proud of that still.
Yep.
But you know what? Actually, one of my fondest memories from that apartment is we had what was it Pony Fest?
Oh,
we had the Pony. Pony was like, I want to have a party, and we're like, all right, John, we'll give you a party. And so we photoshopped his head onto a bunch of like photos of like us like riding horses, like like Blazing Saddles type shit. We put his face, different facial expressions of him on Mount Rushmore.
Yep.
Like he didn't know what to think. I think we broke him for a quick minute. Like there was a couple moments of just speechlessness, and his jaw was just kind of dragging around the floor.
Actually.
Yeah.
That was a good party.
Getting to the main point of the story, though, is that he's like, all right, I have Ox Knight. It's my party. I'm like, all right, Pony. All right. And he goes, but Pony, you can't play gas pedal 100 times. Like, and what did he do? He played it. Oh no, it got stuck. No, your phone didn't get stuck, dude. You played gas pedal 1,000 times.
The problem was that he had a playlist, and for whatever reason, that was song number 1. I don't think that's normally what you put as song number 1. No. But every time somebody would like request a song, he'd restart the playlist. So we wound up hearing gas pedal, I think, like 5 random times throughout the night.
Eventually, we took it away from him. We're like, you've lost your privileges. You're done.
After the fifth time in like 2 or 3 hours, yeah.
Oh, that was good though. That was awesome, buddy. Like, and so getting back to like the more, I guess, crucial part of college, the studying.
Yep.
Why did you were a finance major?
I was.
Why did you pick that field to study, or what is it about finance? Like I said, I mean, I've made it clear why I like politics and all that stuff in previous episodes, but what was it really, sent you on that path? Or it's like, hey, I want to be a finance guy,
Yeah, when I was a kid, I mean, really, I was just good at math, so that's a good starting point. Yes, right.
I was not.
Yeah, and then as I went through high school, when I'm taking an economics course, and it was just it was really interesting. It wasn't quite what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I mean, not
right.
Or at least be just an economist,
right?
But I knew that I wanted to do something with business because it was just so interesting to know like how these all these factors can affect like a business and how it operates and everything is so interesting.
Yeah,
so ridiculously interesting. So I knew going into it I'd want to do something in the business field, so I went in as general business. And it wasn't until the second year, so sophomore year, that I took an intro to finance course, and the professor went and pulled up Netflix's the stock chart, and just went through it and basically showed essentially told a story just by looking at the graph. And it's just like cool. every news press release that they had that affected the stock. Obviously, there's been plenty of them now.
Right.
But you could just watch it grow, and as it went from this company that sent out discs to become like a major streaming platform.
That's a crazy, yeah. When you mentioned that is crazy. You think about, and that wasn't really that long ago that they were like the majority of the money that Netflix made was not. They did not start as a streaming company. People, I think, kind of forget that now.
Yeah.
Like they started as a DVD mailing video. I think they even maybe did video games for a short time.
Yeah.
Like they literally just mailed discs to people.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the Amazon of DVDs.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
That was
right. Yeah. That's. Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but you know what? That's a good professor right there, man.
Yeah, and Amazon started as a book, so they wanted to do just books,
right?
So I mean, yeah,
kind of Jeff Bezos' garage or whatever the story is, right?
Yeah, but so as that was for some reason like that put the little sparkle in my eye, and I was like, this is what I'm gonna do, and from there I finished the business major. I think it was by the end of sophomore year, and I just switched to just finance, so I was playing catch up, taking like all these classes. But just loving it.
Yeah.
And, from there, I mean, it was just, it was natural. I don't know, it's interesting how, I was just lucky I found something like that because so many people, you're hopping majors during college.
Yep.
But yeah, for some reason, I think it was just the math brain. and it just makes the world make sense in just a different way that a lot of people think about it. And
I'm glad it makes sense to you, bud. I'm glad it makes sense to you.
There's beauty in the madness.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. No, I've actually had to really catch up on my math skills here. Quick math skills, changing jobs. I mean, because I'm measuring and doing, calculating and things that I never really had to do before. And so I've had those skills, but like, when you don't use them for a while and they get a little rusty-dusty, and you have to, literally dust them off and start using them again and like I said, I have to start using that other side of my brain now that I haven't used, because I've been very, like, last year I taught English, I was using my very creative, heavy, like, other side of the brain.
Right.
So with that being said, it's interesting, and I'm glad that, you found that. And like I said, like we've seen with friends of ours and whatever, people do hop around, they have hopped around from place to place, and that's not easy either. You know what I'm saying? Like to find something that you really love. And like, again, I can say this from my own perspective and my own experience. Like, I had something I really loved.
Right.
And, the thing that I, loved in a lot of ways was driving me crazy, and it was just not a path forward right now, you know? And so I had to adapt and overcome. And again, I'm so happy for folks like yourself, Jim, who have found something that's just working. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's very special. That's, I guess in this climate, it's very unusual in a lot of senses.
Yeah.
You can disagree with me, but
no, I mean,
it's just it's very unique, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the person. I mean, there's
you're right.
so many people, and, it's funny because, now as we're getting older, like, I'm like, oh, wow, finding out what I want to do sophomore year of college is very fortunate. But then it was like, at that point, I was like, geez, there's so many people that knew what they want to do since they're like 15 or whatever, and they've been studying this stuff forever. But, it's like everybody finds
one of those people.
Yeah, everybody finds their moment at a different time.
Yep.
So, and so the thing is, I mean, just because you're, taking a sidestep doesn't mean, I always see your eyes on the prize. So, it's,
Oh, I'll get there.
Yep.
I'll get there one of these days.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's just figuring out, like, I look at life a lot like a map. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get from point A to point B eventually.
Yeah.
It just depends what trail you take, and that's why I like using a hiking analogy. Like when you go hiking, you have your different difficulties of trail. You can take like like down at Acadia National Park, you have the precipice, which is like iron rungs climbing on the side of the cliff. The more difficult. Or you can do the beach trail, which just goes along the beach. It's an easy little winding trail. It depends on what avenue you want to take in life. It's like, do you want to fight a lot of adversity and struggle, or do you want to kind of take the easy way out? And it's hard to find a good balance between the two, because you don't want to just cakewalk through life either, because again, that's not life, not really, as we've come to find out being out of college now. And like, again, that's what the hardest thing I've struggled with, and this is an honest struggle. It's the losing that safety net of St. Anselm College, or college in general. It doesn't just have to be St. A's. It's just college in general, losing that safety net and losing my community. That's really the biggest thing. And I've been slowly rebuilding, community up here. And, I have my own plans for what I'd like to see in Augusta and, whatever else or wherever I am. But the fact of the matter being is that, I really lost my crew, my people. And, living with you after college was great, in the sense that I'm sorry you had to go, live with me in one of the toughest moments of my life, but I'm glad you were there, because I probably couldn't have done it with many other people.
Right.
Like I said, that campaign took a lot out of me. That presidential race took a lot out of me, and almost reduced me down to, one of the tougher, like I said, the tougher spots I've been in.
Yeah.
When you're working 7 days a week and in interesting conditions, it's tough. And so when you have a good support system, and that's why I value you so much, buddy, is like you could have been like, wow, you're turning into like a miserable asshole. Like, I don't need to stand by you, but you did. And I mean, I say that with some levity and humor, but it means a lot, buddy. And so that's why, I appreciate, like I said early on, I appreciate your friendship, and just like, friendship's the major theme of this episode, guys. Yeah. And so, like I said, once you find those people, hold on to them, because like I said, you don't know when, again, you might not know when you're going to see them again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and talking a little bit more about that, the safety versus risk reward aspect of like taking those paths. I mean, the other thing is, like, you can't beat yourself up about taking, like, the easier trail for a portion of it. Every decision you make, every path you choose is a function of where you are at that point in time. And so I think the way I look at it is just, I made the best decision I had with what I had
what you were given
so
for
far.
tools, right? Yeah.
And it's
course.
just, continuously, thinking about where you are, figuring out what the best path is forward, and then just like not thinking about what you just walked,
Yeah.
You gotta,
you gotta push that aside sometimes.
No sunk cost fallacy. Just
right.
keep
No,
going.
and that's something I struggle with. I'm getting better at it, but it's something I struggle with. It's like,
right.
It's like, part of it serves as good stories. Part of it's that life lesson stuff we were talking about earlier in this episode. But it's just, it's not the easiest thing to do to just push out those, especially like, I don't know. I don't want to say like I don't feel like I'm owed anything or anything like that. But it's just to the sense that, you struggled and you want to see something change because of the struggle or whatever. Especially in politics, it's tough. Someone said to me the other day, well, you should have known better.
Yeah.
You should have just known, like, similar to what Jeff said when he came on to his episode. You have to think about who's paying you, too.
Right.
And you know what? Yeah, I let that go. But at the time, it was less about me making money and being comfortable and more about saving democracy.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, the party I worked for still is a burning dumpster fire. But it's just, especially now with everything that's going on, it's crazy. But it's just, I'm kind of glad I took a step back away from that world, and I'm going to approach it from a different way now.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't regret any of that, like the campaign or, leaving the Republican Party. I regret none of it, buddy. Like, even though it was tough, like, especially the last year was tough, not being able to find a job and whatever else, but I got over it, and I'm slowly getting myself out of that shit, and it takes time, though.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not an instant overnight change. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're still going to wake up angry some days because of it.
Right.
Or whatever. You're still, something might happen that, kicks back in your mind, like I said, driving through certain spots in New Hampshire, like when I was coming out, I was telling you when I came up to see you and Christina, a couple months ago, month or so ago now.
Something like that.
But when I was coming to see you guys, driving through a couple spots in New Hampshire made me think, that's where I worked and did the campaign. I hadn't been back there since I, did the campaign. So again, you think about things, remember them, but you can't overly dwell on them. And that's the point I'm at. That's the point I'm trying to get into and actually follow that advice from like you and Lucas and some of my other friends that have told me more or less the same thing. You can't beat yourself up over that stuff. And like I said, I take things very personally and very seriously in anything I do. I mean, you know me, I put my blood, sweat, tears, soul. And again, you can't expect to always get that return or get that the equal buy-in, you know what I'm saying, with other people or whatever. And that's something that I've had to remind myself again. And again, it's hard to not place your expectations for life or whatever on other people. Right. It's a difficult thing, and I struggle with it. I'll admit that. You know, it's not that I'm saying like you need to fit my version of the world, but like just like I'm very like punctual on time, and then you have somebody that may not value. Like it's not that they don't value being with you; it's just that being 15 minutes late is nothing to them. I'm just using that as an example, obviously.
No,
but like,
I agree.
That's just a very basic form of expectation. But I at the same time respecting other people's time and space and whatever. So life is a difficult road to walk, my friend.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like we said, so you're a function of your opportunity. Like your opportunity set changes throughout life. Yeah. You're a function of all the choices you make, given what you have. And I mean, it's difficult when you get knocked down. To gather yourself and
to regain the confidence, right?
It takes a different amount of time for a different amount of people,
right?
And I've never been concerned for you.
Yeah,
so,
I appreciate that. I've been concerned for myself a couple times.
I know you have. But the thing is, like it's like seeing like the people who really know you, that really care about you, can see the end. See the end of the trail, even though it looks difficult.
The path there is dark, but the light at the end is going to be well worth it.
Right.
I'm not saying dark. It's not like clear and open. It's foggy. You know what I'm saying? Like you're feeling your way through like 10 feet at a time. You know what I'm saying? So that you don't sink the ship.
Right. No, I mean
there are rocks in the water.
I mean that's the thing is, the people, you're one of those people that they're friends I know I'll have for a lifetime, and I'd say about any of my friends, it's like, if you guys have a difficult time or get knocked down or whatever, I know you're going to be able to, get yourself up,
rebuild the ship.
Right.
I
mean, it's not a question. It's just a when.
Yeah, right. And that it's when is when, Jim? When is when, right?
Oh, well, I'm happy to predict it for you.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Right. When is when?
Yeah.
When is the time to do anything?
Well, like we said, it'll be when you'll make the decision based on what your opportunity set is.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so, speaking of opportunities that were, given to you, so when we became seniors in college, we were all looking for jobs, and so you were actually, like myself, one of the lucky few that were able to, walk out with the job. And
Yeah.
so, what do you find yourself doing with your current opportunities, buddy?
Yeah, so I'm an investment analyst.
Yep.
It's a really fun job. I work for a small family office, and
Nice.
just I get to do a little bit of everything.
Nice.
It's a lot of a lot of research, a lot of fund manager stuff. Just getting to talk to people who know a lot more than me.
Yeah,
and
that's
really,
always cool. I enjoy that.
it's really beautiful. I mean the learning in general, like as I've gotten older, it's just like realizing how much there is to learn about just about anything you decide to do.
Oh yeah, any
you know,
field.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm working for the Chartered Financial Analyst designation, and it's a program where you take a test that's on 10 different topics each test, and the funny thing is, you learn these topics, and the first test is kind of like a 101, the second test kind of feels like a 201, and when you do that, you realize, especially like having worked in the industry, is the 101 classes, they're even the 201 classes, there is so much depth to every single one of those 10 topics, and that's for a designation for extremely niche field.
Right.
There's so much
You
to
can
know
rabbit hole
in the
on
world.
almost
Yeah,
every issue. Oh,
it's amazing.
Yeah, that's why my biggest thing is like with world events and whatever. Like, I talked with you. I was like, I called this Ukraine thing like months ago because like during COVID, I went down my geopolitical rabbit hole.
Yep.
And I was just like, all right, yep, they've held the Crimea for this amount of time, and they're doing this and they're doing that. I'm like, in the next couple of years, Russia's going to invade Ukraine. It's
Yep.
coming.
Yep.
It's a good strategic military point. I've talked about all that, but like stuff like that, like I love going down the rabbit holes on like my niche areas of interest. Like the internet is a great and terrible place. Reddit is a great and terrible place.
Yep.
Especially to go down like informational rabbit holes. And so
Right.
that's good, buddy. I and that's the type of guy you are. Like you'll study something until like you can't study it anymore. Like you want no, and like the quest for knowledge, and that's why I've always admired about you. Like, and all of our friends really from St. A's is that there's always kind of been a quest for knowledge.
Yep.
Whether it's useful knowledge or not, that's a different story. But that's really cool, buddy. And so, what type of? I know there's a lot of tests. I know you and I have talked about. I can't explain it for justice, so that's why I'm going to turn it over to you in just a second. But I know there's a lot of tests and processes to get where you want to get, and it's quite rigorous. So if you could kind of explain that so people have a better understanding, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's the CFA designation is one of those things where it's not something that's required for a lot of places, but it's kind of like it feels like kind of like a stepping stone to a master's degree.
Yeah.
Where it's it's very much a major learning experience. It's about 300 hours of studying per test. It's a lot of stuff, and it's just a great way to learn a little bit about a lot.
Yeah.
And just become conversational on a lot of topics. And it's just it's helpful, and there's a lot of different paths I could take from there.
Right. Once you're certified, right, the world is kind of yours, and that's
well. I mean, it's not that necessarily that it opens any doors, but it's more so that I could go for MBA. There's a there's financial risk manager.
Avenues.
There's a bunch of different designations and things to go for, and there's a lot of learning opportunities, and it's just crazy because you study 300 hours for something. It's a lot of information. And then you realize that it's the surface. Like it's like literally just the surface. I mean, it's just the tip of the iceberg, which is it's amazing. It's cool to have that, and I think it's just it could be difficult to just be staring up this mountain of things to learn.
Yep.
And knowing that you're just at the bottom, but it's gonna be fun.
That's how I feel, dude, in electrical right now. Like I have a lot to. I mean, I've learned a lot in a short period of time, like I was telling you last night, but I still got a long way to go, dude.
Yeah.
I'm like I said, working towards my journeyman's certificate, so I'll be doing my schooling. And like I said, like I've only scratched the surface.
The cool thing is, I think I don't remember what the graph is called, but yeah, it's like for the first couple of years of you do something, it's like the first couple of months you're like, I think I know what I'm doing, and then like a year, 2 years, 3 years sets in, and all you realize is how much you don't know.
Oh yeah.
And it's just you're just staring up, like it basically feels like the mountain's getting bigger and bigger.
It does.
But
it
eventually
should.
Yeah,
actually, really.
It does.
Yeah.
But I mean, at some point you don't realize that you've been actually working your way up it. Like,
it's
cool.
Like you're actually like further up the hill than you were when you started, and you just have to look back sometimes and be like, oh, actually, I've come a good way from where I started anyway. And so, working in the markets as you do, I mean, like, without, like soliciting advice or anything like that, I guess I'll throw the disclaimer in there, just so you don't get in trouble, buddy. But where do you see us going? Like, again, this is not solicited, advice for investing or anything like that. That's an official disclaimer right here. You can't sue me or Jim. So, that being said, though, buddy, where do you see us going market wise? Like, I mean, I've already said that. I mean, the crash is coming at some point.
I mean, it's difficult. I mean, there's still that hope that they can arrange a soft landing as they talk about, and there's a lot of difficult things to do.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know if I'm bold enough to make a solid prediction, as I mentioned.
But just like in your
it's gonna be hard.
Yep.
It's interest rates are rising. It's hard for first time buyers to buy homes. Low to mid income families are, things are getting more expensive, and a lot of the nation lives paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
And they haven't even kicked back student loans into payment again.
They're already going to.
There's a lot of stuff that's going to make things very difficult for people. And it could be like COVID, where in March 2020, the market is at a low, and everyone's like, oh my god, like bear market territory, springs back like to an insane degree.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard because you see all this turmoil that's obviously coming. Seems like.
Well, there's midterm elections this year too, buddy. That's going to open up a whole other rabbit hole of bullshit, and it is bullshit, folks. Again, the two political parties, and I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist here. The two political parties in this country, like I said, they just want to get you guys all riled up so they can fundraise. If you guys don't like each other, they're lining their pockets. It's true, guys. There's more that unites us than separates us. But anyway, market-wise, I think I agree. Things are going to be tough. Like, there's talk about gas even getting up to like $10 a gallon and crazy, shit like that. And so I feel for a lot of, folks that it's going to get hard to operate, right? Like, driving to work is going to become like I said, in more rural areas that we don't really have public transit, in Augusta and in Maine, really, unless you live in Portland.
No, I mean, my fiance is a visiting hospice nurse, and she has to drive to her patients, and you don't the mileage that you're getting compensated for. I mean, it's very different.
58 cents to the mile ain't covering
getting 58 cents every mile is very different when gas is $2 versus $5.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So
sometimes when I get reimbursed for gas, that'd be a little extra meal money or a little extra fun money. Back in the day. Now it's like, well, that didn't cover shit. Don't get me wrong, still grateful that mileage can be covered if they. Yeah, that's if they don't go ahead and change the tax code around and do a bunch of other nonsense. That's another thing that really I feel kind of set us back more recently. That's just my opinion. In 2017, when they changed the tax code around and things you could write off, you can't write off anymore, and it's just kind of foolish, where we're at, economically in a lot of ways. It's just how long is China going to keep buying our debt, and like how long can we keep the the circus going for? In a lot of ways, like that's genuinely how I feel. It's like, all right. Eventually, the elephant's going to fall off the ball, and when elephants fall off balls, they make craters. They're big. So I don't know. It's just an interesting spot that we've been put into.
Yeah.
Not by any choice of our own, obviously, but like I don't know. I just hope the best for. I really worry for like our generation and even the ones behind us. Like it's like, damn, we're already struggling finding jobs, houses, and stuff. Like guys, I hate to say it to you, but I don't think it's going to get much easier. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Eventually, like, the real estate market is going to have to figure itself out. They can't keep selling homes for cash and for 100% over, asking price. You know what I'm saying? That is eventually going to end, and it has to. It has to, or if not, I'm going to be living at home for the rest of my life. I'll be 40 and in the basement, with the podcast studio. But no, it's just like it's intimidating in a lot of ways, or maybe we have to relocate to places that pay more. Like I would hate to leave the state of Maine. I love the state of Maine, as we were talking about. But like, if things don't change economically in a lot of ways, maybe things will have to change down the road. If things get a lot worse, and like I look at things from a lot of different perspectives too, Jim. Between like the the national electrical grid and other things like that. Like I want to incorporate more green energy, and people are fighting that. And it's like maybe we should be looking at something completely different. It's just like. I even said this, when I was working in education too. This COVID stuff, everything that's gone on these last 3 years has given us a really good opportunity to like hit the reset button in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And we're still just tripping over ourselves. It's like we just need to, I don't know. I feel like the majority is together, but there's just some fringe that doesn't want to just work it out. It's like a 80-20 split in a lot of ways, but the squeaky wheel always gets greased. If you're the loudest, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on, you're going to get attention drawn to you. And I don't know, maybe it's different for being in the finance world, but it's just like I'm just getting tired of just like bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, things are going to be challenging 100%. I mean, from a financial standpoint, I mean, when I think of like, people's investments and stuff, even when the market's going like this, at the end of the day, like, S&P 500 always recovers, goes back up. I mean, it's like things like that are, there's some things that have, always been constants, but
the only constant in life has changed.
Exactly.
I hate that saying, dude.
But it's going to be hard. Like you just said, there's a lot of things that when you zoom out from just looking at the stock market and you go to like a family and what their day-to-day struggles are, things are challenging.
Oh yeah,
and it's definitely not. It's sad to see.
The kind of funny thing, Jim, and this I've been talking about this with folks more recently. It's the kind of goes back to my senior thesis. Everything is interconnected with labor.
Yeah.
Wages and labor. And again, unionization, all that stuff affects it. I mean, like just here in Augusta, the Chipotle workers, they walked out. They're trying to unionize right now because due to lack of employees and workplace training. And yeah, I understand that, you can't pay these kids $20 an hour to flip burritos or flip burger patties or whatever, the minimum wage and this, that. And like, we could go down the rabbit hole on that very easily, I'm sure. But like, it's just that you gotta find a happy, I guess what I'm trying to say is, Jim, there has to be a happy medium somewhere between people can live comfortably and there's still enough money to pave the roads and do all the infrastructure things. Like, there is a happy medium there. We just never seem to want to find it. I think a lot of people lose out when there's a happy medium found,
Yeah, I mean, the other difficulty is just finding a happy medium where people are actually happy. I think people are usually happy for about 10 seconds.
I'm talking the most general of broad strokes here.
But no, I mean,
just like the ability
difficult.
to like, a house, like a safe, clean, just like real basic, like water, food, you know what I'm saying? Lights, even Wi-Fi. Like you need, like, I hate to like sound like I'm trying to give everything away for free, but like even internet, as we've seen, like I saw in education, like some people don't have internet. How are you expected to log on remotely for public education if you don't have internet? Like all the like things that were no longer like common good, like food and water and power, are now very much like in the common good as we've progressed as a technological society. It's crazy.
Yeah. Life is. I mean, the standard of living is great. It's so much. It's things have evolved extremely quickly.
Like, I'm not saying we need to give everybody a car and a cell phone or something like that, but like, internet. It's hard to argue against internet being a common good now, or a common commodity in that aspect. But I don't know. It's crazy, buddy.
But you're right about. I mean, Chipotle workers walking out in difficult conditions and not getting paid for what you do, and
not feeling safe because they're handling, gas shutoffs and different things. Like kitchen setting is more dangerous than people think. Like you can easily blow yourself up, cooking on a gas range or something. It's, you know what I'm saying? I'm not just, just trying to make excuses or anything like that, but it's just like, I respect them. And again, I think every worker in America has the right to unionize if they so choose. Like the whole, like I told you in college, the whole right to work thing is bullshit. It's not the right to work. It's the right to keep people separated. You know what I'm saying? To keep people, because again, there's power in collectivity. As you know, when people get together, things change.
Yeah.
When people come together, things change. And usually when things change, the people who own the means end up losing out. And I go, Ryan's a communist now. He said the means of production. But no, it's serious though. It's just like we're getting away from like some commonality of good, I guess, in terms of like the workplace. But I don't know. That's just me, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I don't, I'm not super well versed in like you know a lot more about the intricacies of the labor market than I do, but I won't,
but it drives everything
it does,
you do in your job. Everything comes back to that.
No, like, I mean, I definitely, I mean, no, I know. If
Big
what you're
Daddy
talking
Bezos
about.
doesn't have his army of slaves to put his products together. Amazon ain't shipping.
It's crazy. I mean, the thing is, and then you worry about things further in the future, where like when they eventually, it's a long way out, but if they ever do like electric self-driving trucks. I mean, that is such a massive part of the workforce. And
Bill Weld talked about that a lot in the campaign trail.
Yeah.
Self-driving vehicles and that. Everybody I talk to, like even these guys, my buddies that work down at like Bath, they're like, oh, well, like I said, guys, they're gonna come up with automatic welders. They're gonna phase you guys out because workforces are expensive. They're gonna hire 3 guys to make sure the machines run. I'm telling you, this AI shit is going to change all of the industry.
Yeah.
It's going to cut out the human element of the workforce because then they don't have to pay people. You don't have to pay a robot, and robots can work 24/7. And robots don't have to follow labor law.
No,
because they're not human.
It'll be
it's gonna be it's self-driving trucks.
Yeah.
Like I said, if we don't do a lot of workplace, retraining and stuff, we're gonna have a massive sector of unemployment in truck drivers, long-haul truck drivers.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, I mean, I would never do it personally, but I mean, long-haul truck driving's a good job.
Yeah.
You make good money. Some trucking companies, you can be back home every night if you don't want to be on the road all the time. It's I don't know. The workplace is definitely interesting these days between brick and mortar offices closing down because now people are quote unquote working from home. I have various thoughts on that myself, but I don't know. It's just interesting where the dynamics have changed in the workplace, where now the home is now the office, and I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
COVID forced people to reimagine what work was like. I mean, I went fully remote for a while. Now I'm like kind of hybrid. Right? Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, even if you look on LinkedIn, they have they tell you what your expectation is for going into work.
Yeah,
and it's
that's a whole new.
Yeah, I mean, it used to just be you going into the office whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And now it's interesting because so many people realize that either their work-life balance is 10 times better if they're home, and they never want to work for a place that they would have to go in the office every day, or people are like, oh my God, I need a way to get away from whatever. Like I've got kids, like I need to work in a good place where they can't get to me. For at least my 8 hours. So it's interesting. I mean, it really things were forced to move a lot faster than they would have if there was no COVID. You know?
No, seriously, and slower in different ways too, which is crazy. But that being said, buddy, it's just what do you think that I guess one piece of advice, to like younger folks, like somebody just turning 18 or even somebody in their early 20s, what was one piece of advice you'd give them either in the world of the stock market or just like personal finance in general? Like what's a piece of advice you'd give?
I mean, I think pursuing financial literacy or finding somebody that knows something about it. I mean, it's always important to be thinking about your finances because it's the kind of thing where you can go and not think about them, and then the time that you will have to is going to be very uncomfortable.
It's too late.
Yeah.
Right?
So there's a lot of information out there. I mean, I think the broad one's just like open a Roth IRA and stuff like that. But it's different person to person. But I'd say just taking the steps to become financially literate will pay dividends. Or finding somebody that knows it and it's talking to them and having that conversation it's always important.
Right.
There's always some, and that's finance. I mean, it's like with anything, there's always going to be somebody that knows more than you. Significantly. I mean, it's amazing how much information there is. And the funny thing is, the more somebody knows about a specific topic, the more you need somebody for something else because that person is so focused on that one thing to have become that much wealth of knowledge. And it's just, I mean, I would just say, pursue knowledge, and then if you're having difficulty, find somebody that could help you.
Yeah, knowledge reigns supreme above all else, dude. That's why they try to keep people ignorant. No, seriously. It's like I said, if you can't do it yourself, have that person. Like I said, I've got those people everywhere. You got to have experts in the field. It's regardless if they're your friends, your neighbors, or your dog catcher. Like you got to know people who are experts in the field, and we should also respect folks that have expertise in fields too,
right?
And not just instantly discount them because we disagree with what they have to say. Usually they've formed that opinion over many years of study and research, and that should be respected in a lot of ways too. But regardless of that, buddy, the stock market is it's the wild, wild west still. That's maybe a little bit more tame than what it used to be back in the 1800s. There are crazy stories about the early stock market with Vanderbilt and things like that, because they literally had stock cards, you know what I'm saying, that you literally wrote on and whatever. People would manipulate the values and change edit numbers and crazy shit. I mean, I'm sure some little sketchy things happen here and there.
I mean,
but
you could argue NFTs, but
yeah, right. Well, that's a whole other right. Well, I mean, we can talk about crypto for a quick minute, buddy. I mean, what's your what's your personal take on crypto? I mean, like I said, I personally stay away from it because I don't trust it. That's just me. That's again, just me. I'm not convinced that it's a viable form of. It's worked for some people, and I also think that luck is a various element of things, and just striking when the iron is hot. I guess in a lot of ways. Like I could have the DuView Podcast NFT, but like answer me this, Jim. Like I guess the DuView Podcast NFT is only worth what the viewers of the podcast or the fans of the podcast view it at, right? Or like value it at.
Yeah.
Is that
more
correct?
more or less? Yeah. I mean, and the cryptocurrency. I mean, the whole market is so interesting because you even had like everything with like meme stocks and people,
like
retail investors, retail being like an average person, getting into the stock market. It's a good thing, but the difficult part of it is that those retail investors have access to margin and options trading and derivatives very, very early, and you can lose a lot of more money that way than you can with just normal stocks and bonds. So, in even cryptocurrency, I mean, it's something that is extremely volatile,
right?
And moves very quickly. And then there's a lot of pieces to it. I mean, there's the cryptocurrencies themselves. There's the blockchain. There's offshoots from that, like NFTs and even stable coins that people are like, oh, it's going to track the U.S. dollar, and then one of them collapses. My personal take on it was always just I don't. I'm not an expert at cryptocurrency.
Right.
It's another one of those things where it's like you can go so far into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, if you feel strongly about it, I was like, I just recommend like putting like 2%.
Yeah.
Or of whatever you're willing to put. Don't bet the farm on it because as you've seen, like
the farm
it's
can
tanking.
go away. Yeah, exactly.
So because the thing is, when the market was on a tear and people just had a lot of free cash to use, putting some money towards Bitcoin or investing in options, and it's so much easier to make money in a bull market than is in a bear market. And now people are getting killed, and it's very unfortunate because there's a lot of things that like just the taking those big bets when things are going up and getting that affirmation that it was the right decision, and then having everything flipped on its head, and people losing a lot of money. It's it's very sad and challenging, especially when you've got there's so much to know, and it's especially with things like crypto, where it's like very it's just like in starting stages, like it's so new.
It's in infancy, really.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, and then you have like El Salvador took it as a it was legal tender, and it's it's. And then you've got all these other issues, like how long does it take to process a transaction? Is it actually a store of value because the price fluctuates so much? I mean, it's just
can the value change in the middle of the transaction, right?
There's
like,
so many different little things.
Where are the lines, right? And that's for me too. Like it's just very, like I said, it's very wild west-esque. It's very lawless in a sense, and that's what worries me about it. It's like, oh, buy the dip. I'm like, I'm just gonna sit here.
Yeah.
And not do anything.
Yeah.
I feel safer in that. It's like, well, the inaction is no excuse for action. Blah blah. I don't know. I just don't feel a need to be involved with that world right now. And it's just like, I mean, they have people who have bought bunkers and like set up farms to mine it. It's just like, whoa, man. All right, let's slow our roll here. Like.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. The people that are like, there was such a huge market for it, and I mean, even with real estate, I mean, it's just like people like piling in, like doing all these things, like
stacking on.
And just using one house and taking a line of credit on that to purchase more and just renting it. I mean, certain things. I mean, you go for so long, but then you worry like when do you get in at the top of when something is so obviously like just going at just not a sustainable pace, and that's the difficulty with I feel that especially things like NFTs, whereas like everybody's getting them, everybody's talking about them.
Oh yeah,
very few news headlines talking about NFTs now. The Board Monkey Yacht Club does not matter very much when inflation's 8.6%.
No, it doesn't. It's funny how that goes away really quickly. Yeah. I don't know, and it's just like, I mean, I thought about it. It's like it'd be cool to do a DuView Podcast NFT, but it's like I'm not out here trying to do it to like make a buck. Like I'm just doing it out here as like a novelty. Like I don't know. I thought about doing something like that, but it's just like, I don't really feel it's not really me. I mean,
it's interesting.
Me,
Jim, it became the new merch drop.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, like, no, seriously, it did. It's like, oh, get this NFT now, 1 of 100,000.
Yeah,
I'm probably going to sell to everybody.
Yep.
I don't know, dude. Like I said, it's a crazy, messed up world, but we just keep working and keep surviving day after day, and we do what we can do, and we find some people to enjoy it with.
That's right.
And that's all you can do, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, Jimbo, thanks for coming on, buddy. We've covered a lot of ground, personally and also professionally. So thank you for coming on and sharing your views and sharing your knowledge and insight. It's good to finally have somebody with some financial knowledge here to come on, because I felt like that's kind of one of the areas I'd been lacking, and it's good to also have the official, the voice of the DuView Podcast. You are the voice of the DuView Podcast, Jim. They hear me before they hear you, and if they don't like that intro, they can turn it right off. So, hey, man, I appreciate everything you've done for me, and thank you so much for coming up, buddy. This has been awesome, and I, like I said, greatly appreciate you, and like I said, and also almost missed out on this. Congratulations on your engagement, you son of a bitch.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I love you and Tina. You wish the best for you guys. Shout out to Tina. Much love.
Big shout out.
And everybody. So the Andruski family. Just shout out in general. Love those guys. So and shout out to Talalas family too.
Yes, definitely.
I love your family, Jim. Like I said, that's been one of the coolest things about you and Luke and Jeff and Chap and like those guys. When I'm around your family, I feel like I'm actually, I kind of feel like I'm part of the family. It's especially like when you got the Talalas family would come to town, our little apartment, dude. It was great. It's always fun to talk with your parents. Enjoy talking with everybody's folks and seeing how everybody's doing, and just a lot of different cool people out there. Between your mom
really
being
is.
like an artist and your dad's, life. Your dad. Just listening to your dad's stories are fantastic. So. And same thing with, Christina's parents talking with her dad. Her dad helped me out a lot on the campaign trail when he came to Claremont, dude. Yeah. He was integral. We came in and it was awesome. It just,
I feel like
great people.
We've both been blessed with a lot of great people in our lives.
That's the truth, dude. I would not be here today, like I said, if it were not for my friends, man. Yeah. Like I said, they're what keep me going a lot of the time at the end of the day. So. Hey, buddy, thanks again for coming on, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in this week. We're just going to keep these episodes going this summer. We're just going to keep chugging along here, and hope everybody's doing well. Hope you're having some summer fun here. Hoping to get up to camp here myself pretty soon and enjoy the beautiful Maine summers or New England summers in general. So keep up to date with all the DuView goodness, DuView 207 on Instagram, and the DuView Podcast on all of the social media platforms and listening platforms. So if you guys want to tune in and keep things going here. The biggest thing, big ask here at this end of the episode, guys, if people could just start leaving some reviews on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere where I can, be given some stars in a review, it really helps, boost us. So if you could drop some good reviews if you've been enjoying, that would be much appreciated, guys, on Facebook, any of those sites. So keep up to date with all the goodness, like I said, on our social media, and I'll be back in another couple weeks with another episode, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and keep it light.